genetic part of a genetic algorithm means we're doing this by assigning each model a gene sequence that's used to build the model and mutating the gene sequence and then using the mutated gene sequences to build more models. And we're genetically optimizing the model structures for the lowest loss achieved within a fixed time period. Next slide. Some things we've done this semester so far. We've made a basic MNIST network in block graph format that we can use for testing this system. We've made a function for mutating the genes. That's an important thing that we need here. We've made the general framework for an evolutionary algorithm that manages the population and calls functions for mutations and evaluation and such. And we've started on how to convert between genes and graphs. We'll have to convert our initial model to a gene, and then we'll have to convert the mutated genes back into graphs. Part of that we've done mostly is come up with format for how to represent the graph with a gene. We still need to do a bit more work on the actual functions for building a graph from that node. Next slide. Some challenges that we've faced or anticipated. One of them is, what if the evaluation function crashes? We probably want to have the evaluation return errors instead of crashing if a model is invalid or runs out of VRAM or something like that. But especially in the runs out of VRAM case, that's not really easy to do in all cases. So if a model's just not going to work, we don't want the entire program to crash because we can still try out other models. And I think we can actually solve that one by calling a subprogram from the command system, have the program call another program for evaluation. So the subprocess can crash without crashing the main program. Another challenge has been figuring out how exactly to design the gene format. That took us a while, which is why we're kind of only just now getting to actually building models from genes. A third challenge is member retention. We had members leave the project after a couple weeks. It seems like everyone has this problem to some degree, but it's interesting trying to assign tasks when someone might not be here next time. And another challenge we've had is member experience. Our members have mostly been inexperienced both with neural networks and with programming in general. So there's been some efforts made to try to explain stuff about neural networks to people and basic features of the Rust programming language, which is the best programming language. You all should use it. Next slide. Here I will explain some details of the block graph format and the gene format. So we make a block graph network out of 4 collections, 2 of which are the list of connections and the list of what order to run the connections in. And the other 2 are maps from IDs to layers and IDs to nodes. Each connection has 3 IDs, one for the input node, one for the output node, and one for the layer. Each node can have a list of tensors, and each layer has a neural network function, and when it's applied to some input list of tensors, it will process those and append the output to the output list of tensors. Next slide. So, given these 4 collections, we can design a gene sequence based on this that's divided into 4 types of entries. The genes in your body have start and stop codons that tell transcription proteins when to start making an RNA and when to stop making that strand of RNA. So analogously, we have one of 4 types of start codons for whether this entry is a connection, layer, node, or order. And then we can have one type of stop codon that just ends the entry regardless of what it is. And IDs in the gene sequence could get mutated inconsistently. Say we have an entry for a connection and it's connecting to a layer with ID share. But the layer's ID mutates to hair. If these are close enough, we're still going to match these. We're going to fuzzily match the IDs because it would be too much to try to have the random mutations guess exact IDs. Question, Max? 2 minutes? Okay. Next slide. The framework we have for the evolutionary process is a pretty basic evolutionary algorithm framework. We start from an initial model, generate a gene sequence from that to initialize the gene list. Then we call the evaluation subprocess that mutates and trains each model in the, it mutates each gene in the list, builds each model, trains them, and makes a list of models with their genes, their loss, and the model. And then there's a selection process that selects the models with the best loss. And that can feed back into the gene list, or we can output the best model as the final model. Next. The next things we're going to be doing are finish the functions for converting between genes and block graphs, write the actual evaluation subprocess because we have the evolutionary framework but not the subprocess for evaluating the models. And then once we're done with that, we're going to make our model evolve and see if it does anything interesting.
Thank you.
Thanks for listening.
Questions?
Question?
So I'm curious why you, or how you came upon this, like representing the neural network as a gene sequence. Because like when I've heard of neural networks before, it's all about like comparing it to the human brain. But I've never heard of it like representing it as a gene sequence.
Well, kind of like how with neural networks, we use brains in biology as an analogy. With genetic algorithms, we use genes from biology as an analogy. And in biology, you have some genes that code for your brain. And not all of your brain is genetic. Your brain is shaped by environmental experiences and training and such. And it's the same here. The genes describe the general structure of the block graph, but the model is still going to be trained differentiably after it's constructed. Max?
How did you draw this connection between using genetic algorithms for representing neural networks? Is that your idea, and if so, where it's coming from?
I'm probably not the first person to think of representing neural networks using genes. Does meat use genes? I think they just directly evolve the graph. I'm sure someone's applied a genetic algorithm to neural networks before. I personally decided to apply a genetic algorithm to block graph somehow. I forgot exactly what my train of thought was there.
Question, are the different neural networks that are created by the different gene sequences different sizes? Like, do they have different numbers of neurons, or is it a fixed size? Because you mentioned like running out of VRAM, is that because the models got too big?
Yeah, they are allowed to get bigger. So if they run out of memory, that's a problem. If they make inconsistent dimensions, that's also a problem. Rather than throwing an error, I plan to deal with that by truncating or padding the tensors.
Also, like, in theoretically a unconstrained environment, what's to stop the models from just mutating to become bigger and bigger and bigger and learning the data set like it's exactly?
We have a couple things that stop it from doing that. One is that it'll run out of VRAM, the subprocess will crash, and that gene will be skipped. And the other is that we optimize the genes for loss achieved within a time limit, and bigger models will take longer to train.
Do you or any of your members have like a background in biology, or like how deep of like biology understanding do you think you need for something like this?
I don't think you need a deep biology understanding for this. After all, ML engineers generally aren't neuroscientists, even when they work on neural networks.
Last question.
Yeah, I think we do have to finish the questions at this point, sorry, because we have to do one presentation where the members have to leave in a moment.
Okay. All right. Last question.
Why did you choose Rust and not something like Python, more established machine learning framework?
Because Rust is the best programming language.
Okay. Thank you, Eiley.